Hey everyone, Christopher Ruocchio here, author of the Sun Eater science fantasy series from Doll Books, junior editor at Bane Books, where I work with sci-fi and fantasy writers for the last 6 years. And today I wanted to do sort of the sequel to my video about what came out in 2020 and talk a little bit about what is coming up in 2021. First off, as many of you will know, Book 4 in the Sun Eater series, Kingdoms of Death, has gotten pushed back to March of 2022. It was supposed to be July, but between the virus that shall not be named, to borrow a phrase, and some personal, trouble. I had some folks in my family who were sick with not the virus, but some other stuff. The book just got pushed back. Publishing scheduled books in blocks of 4 months, and the next block of 4 months was already full, so it had to get moved a little bit further down the road. I am sorry about that. Perversely, work on Kingdoms of Death is virtually done. I have 10 chapters to go as of today, and I'm looking at being done around the end of the month, maybe that first week of February, give or take a few days in either direction. So it's nearly done, which means that I'm actually afforded a lot of time between now and the release of the next book, and thereby the release of book 5. So I'm expecting there won't be a big crunch on number 5. And more importantly, I have plenty of time to get stuff out between now and then, because I am real sorry about that delay. And the good news, as I say, is there is more coming. So without further ado, what does this year look like for me? Starting off at the top with January, those of you who've been following the channel will know I launched a Patreon about a week ago, and it's going very, very well. I'm doing all sorts of draft preview chapters, things like that. If you want to check out the first chapter of Kingdoms of Death, it is available exclusively through the Patreon right now. You can go on there and support me if you are so inclined. You can get that. I'm giving away some trading cards. And writing updates and a bunch of other stuff. So I launched that right at the top of the month. But most of this month is simply devoted to finishing book 4. If I'm really lucky and I can finish Kingdoms of Death before the end of January, I'm going to transition to start working on my next project, which is a short story called The Dragon Slayers, which will bleed into the beginning of February. The Dragon Slayers is for an anthology I've been working on for my day job at Bane Books called World Breakers. World Breakers is about a bunch of cybernetically controlled tanks, AI-controlled tanks. And so the Dragon Slayers is the story of a Solon Imperial Legion sort of strike team going up against a Cielson augmented, chimeric war machine. I don't expect it's going to take me more than a couple days to write that. It's just one big action set piece. It's going to be real fun, and it's actually going to revolve around some minor characters who are going to turn up in Kingdoms of Death. So, it's a little bit of a tie-in piece. A lot of the short stories are. So that's going to be what I'm working on going into February. And as February continues, I'm going to transition. I've got another short story I need to work on, a novelette, technically. It's 3 chapters, a piece called The Pits of Emesh. I've mentioned it in a couple of my newsletters. The Pits of Emesh is a Hadrian story written in the same style as the books itself. It's set back during Empire of Silence, when Hadrian was a Myrmidon in Borisivo on Emesh. For folks who have missed characters like Switch and Gen, we'll get to see them again. It's almost like 3 chapters that just got cut from Empire of Silence. They weren't; these are all original chapters. But it's sort of like a Lost Chapters vibe is what I'm going for with that story. It's going to be Hadrian in his gladiator days. I wished I could have done more stuff with the gladiators in the book, so doing this as sort of a supplemental piece is going to be really fun. Pits of Emesh is going to be included in my first sort of ebook only short story bundle, Tales of the Sun Eater Volume 1, which I will be putting together at the end of February and early March. Get it, typeset, copy edited, all those things. I got the cover art nearly done for that as well from a great artist named Nathan Anderson. And my plan is to debut that right at the end of March. And while that is getting ready to roll out, after I've got everything set up, I'm going to be pivoting to working on my next short story project in the back half of March, maybe a little bit into April. This is a full-blown novella. Right now, I'm calling it The Red Company. It's going to appear in another anthology I'm doing for Bane Books called Sword and Planet. Going to have the cover reveal for that very soon as well. Sword and Planet is going to be a collection of science fantasy stories, which of course Sun Eater is, but stories in the vein also of A Princess of Mars, John Carter, and great stories like the Eric John Stark books by Lee Brackett, and all the other great sort of science fantasy stories of the pulps, as well as a bit of a Star Wars, Dune, Gene Wolfe, Jack Vance kind of thing. broad collection of that sort of science fantasy stuff that I love best in all the world. It's the first anthology I've gotten to edit by myself, but it's going to have this full-blown, 7, 8, maybe 9 chapter story from me set in the Sun Eater universe. It's a direct sequel to Howling Dark, and it is Hadrian's first mission as a knight in the Imperial service, and in his battle against the Cielsen, and of course against the humans who are not being as noble and forthright as they should be. So I'm really, really excited about that. I'm going to be working on that into April. Now, a brief note for May, I'm going to be doing a video version of my short story Fire in the Sky that appeared on my friend Jean-Paul Garnier's Simultaneous Times podcast. You can listen to The Duelist for free right here on the YouTube channel, but I'm going to be doing the video component with that and releasing it here sometime in the middle or late May. But while I'm putting that video together, I also expect that'll be around the time I start seeing revision notes for Kingdoms of Death from my editor. And so I'll be working on that and juggling that with outlining the Valka standalone light novel, sort of in the vein of The Lesser Devil for Crispin. This is Valka's equivalent of The Lesser Devil. And I'm not 100% sure that I will be able to turn that around and get it out this year. With those light novels, there are a few stumbling blocks, getting the cover done, getting things typeset, copy edited, and I have to do all the editorial revision myself. I don't have a professional content editor for that, so I have to sit down and look at it a little bit differently than I will with the full-on novels, as well as getting a cover done and things like that. There are a few stumbling blocks. The other big thing is The Lesser Devil actually took a lot longer to come out because I was trying to get it to come out in audio at the same time. I'm hoping that I will be able to get the Valka story out in audio as well, but doing that may mean there's going to be a delay. My goal at the moment is to roll out that Valka story in October, to work on it in May, June, and July, and then to turn it around and get it, rolling for a release, as I say, around October. But that may not happen. If any of the stuff I'm talking about doesn't happen this year, it's going to be the Valka light novel. I've already tried to write it before. I started a draft before Kingdoms of Death, and it didn't quite gel. So I'm a little nervous to take another crack at it, but I really want to tell the story. It's set between Demon in White and Kingdoms of Death, which gives you a couple clues about what it may be, I should say. But I want to get that story out there. And that leaves the last of the year for the big one. By about August, I expect that all these short projects will be done and ready to go, delivered to their publishers or whoever, and it will be time to start outlining and getting into book 5. Now, with the delay on book 4, the book 4 has taken about 10 months to write. For a point of comparison, I think Demon in White took about 8. You would think that being locked at home would be good for writing, but that just meant my day job came home with me, and it made it very, very difficult to sort of keep those parts of my life apart, and it was not very good for workflow. So I'm hoping I'll be well into book 5, if not close to finished with it, by the time you guys even see Kingdoms of Death in March. That is my current goal, but even if I don't finish it by March, it's very, very likely that it'll be close to done by then. So maybe by June of next year, book 5 should be totally done, is my current goal. And I don't expect I'll be picking up any short projects in the meantime. While I'm doing that, I'm going to just try and focus. Although that being said, I may try to work in one other short project real quick before I jump into that Valka story. Back in May, it's a little bit of a stretch goal. We'll see how quickly Pits of Emesh and Red Company and Dragon Slayers all go. But if I have a week, I can slam another short story out, and I've got a couple ideas. But I want to try to have that stuff prepped because I want to get the second volume for the short story collection ready for 2022. And I need content for that, of course. I've already got a few stories lined up that aren't going in the first batch that'll be in that second one, but I want to keep things going so that every couple months there's something new coming from me. To say nothing about stuff here. As I mentioned, the Patreon's got preview draft chapters. Started with the first chapter, Kings of Death, this month. The next month is actually going to be a fun one. It's going to be the first chapter from the original version of Empire of Silence, which changed completely in the edit, particularly after Hadrian leaves Delos and goes to Emesh. It is a completely different book. So I'm going to be weaving in with these Patreon chapter releases this original draft of Empire of Silence. So you can see this parallel version of Hadrian's journey. Like I said on the Patreon stream, I'm a big fan of Tolkien. I always enjoyed reading those other books, like Unfinished Tales and Morgoth's Ring and the War of the Jewels, these earlier versions. And so getting to see a different version of Hadrian starting his journey, I think will be fun for some folks. So if that's your thing, please do check out the Patreon. We've got a lot of stuff going on there. And of course, you can help support me, support the channel, support my writing. I'll be able to maybe get some more art produced, things like that. Another thing I want to mention, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do, and please like this video. We've got about 620 subscribers right now. When we hit 1,000, I'm going to do a special live stream, and I am going to read a bit from Kingdoms of Death for you. So if you don't want to back the Patreon, at least you can subscribe to the channel, and we'll get to that stream pretty soon. I think definitely by the first half of the year, we will be at that 1,000 subscriber mark, and I'm excited to share a little bit for Hadrian's future with you all. All right, and that about wraps it up for the video. Thank you for watching, and as always, thanks for reading, and until next time, everybody, stay well.